Okay, were they at the open house? Okay, yeah. We missed it. We were looking forward to homecoming. That's amazing. Yeah, we love that. I was wondering how you could pull it off of the budget, and you talked about it. Okay. Yeah.
They're like,
Okay. That's all kids need, right? They love those chunky things. Yeah, that's awesome. Are they gonna do it anymore this year? Is there like a spring one in the fall too? Like she has a big heart for the kids. Yeah, is that the one right on 122 right across the street? Okay. Okay, I was wondering if they were open because their sign was down for so long.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. About Hillary. You have it?
Yes. Oh, yes.
That's awesome. See, they saw her heart too. And they're like, yeah, we can use you. Oh, good for her. That's great.
Oh, yeah. All I have is short notice. I just watched the lives.
Yeah, it's really, when she started getting sick at the beginning of the week, I was like, I think you need to stay home. I want to share germs.
Yeah,
temperature. And she's like, I know you want to see friends.
Sanders said, I don't have to hear it, but I'll do it.
Yeah. You too. Thank you.
I'll be with that. Yeah, I mean, you have to do the set the live stream and then start the live stream. It's a lot.
Right.
Live streams can have a delay too.
I doubt that. I doubt that.
I got to indicate now. Just start. But he's all that. So if I get November, January, February, March.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah. So it's obvious. But they still work. They expect those out.
Good, how are you?
It's- And the teacher stuff, Tiger stuff. Would you be?
Oh.
A man named Jim Young is. I just want to know what about me. But already asked me the introduction.
Yeah, talking about
Oh, yeah.
I went in there, she was straight.
I do.
No, I don't. Sure.
Yeah, that's never good. Oh. Yeah.
Will you be able to? Yeah.
Yeah, somebody has a question.
This is, Craig. Craig. Hey, thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. To 6:35, just wanted to wait a few minutes to get everybody in, make sure we're here and get started. And since you signed in the back, if you have not signed in the back, I know we're checking to see if you check mark next to your name that you want to speak, so we can call on you, and so you can answer your question, and we can take as long as you want to answer whatever questions you'd like. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce who's here tonight. I'm Mike Sander. I'm Superintendent of Franklin City Schools. Kevin Hawley, who is our treasurer. James McFarland will be the moderator. We'll call on people to kind of ask whoever wants to ask questions over the list, and they'll go back and mosey around and check to make sure we get everybody on that. And then we have with us tonight, we've got Andy Fleming, who is a board member. Rachel Wolfenberger is here with us tonight. Ashley Blevins is with us tonight. Chris Sizemore, I thought, if there he is over there tonight. I know that we have 4 board members, which is more than 2, but we checked with the attorney since we're not doing any business. It's just informational. Actually, all 5 board members could be here tonight, so there's no violation of any sunshine law because there is no board action being taken tonight on that. So I just want to make sure that we're good with that. We do have some building principals here. We have Jeremy Ward, Hunter Elementary. We've got Alicia Malhot, who is at Franklin Junior High. And I think that's all I see tonight. So want to thank everybody for coming. We do want to make sure that you get all your questions answered before we finish tonight, just to make sure everybody's got information and clarity of what's going on with finances and so forth. So with that, I will turn it over to James if you want to start us off.
James.
That's what it said on the
Usually go by Jim, but that's all right. So thank you all for coming this evening. We're going to start with Q&As for the superintendent and the treasurer. We have one person that has so far indicated they wish to ask a question, Mr. Young. If you would like to stand, ask your question. I'll probably repeat your question just for the live stream, which is currently going.
Sure. Well, the only question I had, and I guess maybe it's, I don't know, good or not, but I noticed on the school's website, it had a statement that said the district has not had any new operating money since 2014. Now, what does that mean? That you haven't had any new operating money?
Well, back in the way schools are funded, and Kevin could talk a little bit more on that, but basically you do get a state budget. Okay. What it is we haven't had a local revenue increase since 2014. That was back. So we had several levies previously. But the last levy we had for new funding for operation was back in 2014. We passed that in February of 2014. And with that, so the way you have funding is you get, when you run a levy, there's a sudden increase in revenue. So it goes straight up. So that next year, when you collect it, so it was passed in 2014, meant that we started collecting that money in 2015. And so you had a straight line up between 2014 and 2015 with an increase of revenue for us to run the district with. But what happens is that's a fixed sum levy. So what happens is that dollar figure stays the same. We've had that exact same dollar figure since 2014 all the way now to 2025. And what happens is as property values, because that was set on a certain property value, and as property values go up, your millage goes down, so that no matter what happens, that's the amount we collect. So that's what we mean by we have not had operational levy since 2014.
Well, if I look at the tax statement I get from the county every year, it's significantly higher now than it was in 2014. That says go to Franklin City School.
Yes, I can talk a little bit about that. So there have been some increases over time. School funding is really complicated, especially on the local side. There's something called the 20 mil floor. I won't get into all the details of what that means, but when your home value does increase, there are some increases that occur on your taxes. It's not a 1-for-1. So let's say your home value went up 35%. Your taxes may have gone up 13%. That's only if you're what's called on the 20 mil floor. The district has not been on the 20 mil floor for the last 10 years. So when there have been increases over time, you've actually maybe seen very little increase in your taxes. Yeah, and then what Mike just brought up is there was a bond levy that occurred 5 years ago.
2020.
Yeah, so in 2020 there was a bond levy. So that is what those funds created this campus and have done some renovations over at the junior high. When you do a bond levy versus an operating levy, those are two separate funds. So the bond fund can only be utilized for creating new buildings or renovating spaces. The general fund is what basically funds the school district day to day. We're talking salaries, benefits, keeping the lights on, supplies, things like that. So you may have seen some increases. The other challenge that you may see, and this is maybe going a little bit deeper on it, is as values increase in the district or in the community, let's say, this is what gets complicated about local funding. Let's say over 3 years, your home went up 10%. Or let's say actually on the average, the district went up 10%. Your home went up 15% and their home went up 5%. Their taxes actually decrease, your taxes increase. So when you're looking at a more
You get that same amount of money. You get the same dollar back.
so that we get the same dollar amount. So if your home is not appreciating at the same level or at a greater level than the district as a whole, your taxes actually can decrease over time. So when you start to look at it or increase, so when you look at a micro level, it might impact you differently, but we as a district would receive the same dollar amount over that period of time.
And just so you know, sir, the bond levy that he talked about, the built the school, the renovations and so forth, that by law cannot be used to run the school district. Now, the operating money that we got back in 2014 or any operating money, by law, you can take operating money and put into a building like this. Our board did not. They have kept the two piles separate. So the bond money was used for this strictly. Operating money, going back to the increase in 2014, was only used to operate the schools. There was no operating money put into this facility.
So the money that you received in, I guess it's 2015, whatever that
Correct.
dollar amount was from property taxes, is the exact same amount you received in 2015?
It's the same amount. The only difference is that was originally called an emergency levy. The district renewed it with what's called a substitute levy. So when the substitute levy is in effect, you can actually increase the amount of money the district receives on new residential property. So we receive the same amount on existing property. If there's any new buildings or anything like that, the district can receive a little bit of additional income, but it's not very much.
But the people that voted did not get an increase. Just and the other thing is, just so you know, that when that substitute levy was done, we had two levies at the time. We had that new money levy, if you want to call it that, in 2014. But back in 2005, there's a Warren Safe and Dry levy. The substitute levy combined those two levies, so you're not going back to the ballot box all the time and all that. But when those two were combined to a substitute, it didn't raise your taxes.
So the tax that I paid in 2014,
15.
well,
It was voted in 14. It was voted in 14, collected in 15. Correct.
Okay, so that should be not significantly more than what I'm paying now?
Correct.
Well, it's not even close. It's almost double what I'm paying now.
Well, so we'd have to look at that. And obviously what did occur in the meantime was the bond levy. as
Yes,
well.
that would add into it.
increase.
Yeah.
I mean, I've lived here for a long time, 30+ years. I go back to the oldest tax statement that I actually physically have, the property tax one, like in 2004 is when I have it. And it was $404 is what I paid in school tax for a 6-month period. We went to school. In 2025 in July, paid $1,032.
You would have had a bump up. You would have had a bump up in 2020 when the bond levy went up. So that's going to be an increase in the property taxes there. Other than that, it's just going to be fluctuating throughout the whole.
And from 2004 to 2014, It didn't go up nearly as much, it only went up $180 every 6 months, but then from 2014 to 2025, which went up 77%.
Well, what did it go up from 2014 to 2015? Because that's what, that
I
was the
didn't
new
look
money.
at 2015 because everything said 2014. so
Okay,
that's why I
well, I'm sorry, but the 2015 would be, that was the last tax levy for new money. And then once again, try to look at 2020, because it would have been actually in 21 is when you would have paid that bond levy. So the key, and if you want to give us a holler with those figures, but look at those figures at 2015, that was the new money levy in 2014. And then 2021 was when you would have had a tax increase from the 2020 bond levy.
So between 15 and 21, there shouldn't be much difference.
Not much difference. And then from 2021 to 25 should not be much difference.
Well, I know this last year they went up significantly.
And that's part of what I was talking about. It's called the 20 mil floor. We could dive more into that on your own personal experience, but there are some increases that are.
But I mean, if I look at my taxes from 2004 to 2025, it went up basically 4.55% a year is what it went. If you took 4.55% times my 2004 tax and did that every year, that's what I'm at now. So 4.5% a year is what my taxes have went up.
Yeah, so if you started in 2004, you would have had a buffer what? To.
I'm just saying that's a lot to me.
Yeah, sure.
I don't get a 4.5% raise every year. So, I mean, the schools are getting a 4.5% raise every year from me. Now, I don't know if everybody else in the district is in the same position I am, of the same amount of increase. But to me, that's a huge increase in the amount of tax that I'm paying to the city school. To me, it is at least. I mean, it's from 400, even from 2014, from $584 to $1,032. That's a huge difference in the tax bill. That's just, I mean, that's what my question was.
Fair question.
So the amount of money that you're receiving to run the schools in 2015 has never went up. If that was $5 million, you're still only getting $5 million to run the schools from the tax bill. I guess that's kind of my base.
Yeah,
question.
because it was a fixed sum levy. That was a fixed sum levy. So that means this is the dollar figure you're going to bring in no matter what.
Correct.
Okay.
And that has not raised, and you've gotten no more money since 2015.
Only after the substitute levy when there was some growth coming in, yes.
Well, I wonder where all my money's going. They ain't making it to you guys, I guess.
Well, and then also on the 20 mil floor, so 20 mils, there's a law that you got to collect 20 mils locally. We get 4 mils of that. And then, but part of the mills goes to the city, goes to the fire, goes to the.
Yeah, so what's happened over the last 3 years is, so I'll do my best to try to explain it. So there's something called the 20 mil floor. So let's say the effective millage in the district is 35 mils. 15 of those mills basically makes up these levies that you're talking about, that we're talking about as well. 20 of those mills stay stagnant, and that's happened more in the last 6 years. So if you're always paying 20 mils on a portion of your taxes, that tax rate is not fluctuating up and down, it's staying the way it is. So since we have seen increases in home values in the last 3 to 5 years, the district has received a little bit of a bump on that portion. So that's probably, and I'd love to sit down and look at your specific situation, because it's hard to say exactly when it was and all that, like each year. I can tell you, last 3 to 5 years, there has been an increase based on what's called the 20 mil floor. And I said this earlier, if your home was increasing at 30%, the district is not receiving a 30% increase on your taxes. It might have been 10 to 12%. And that's more recently, but that has not been consistent throughout the last decade.
Is there an easily accessible public document that shows, I don't even know what you call it for a school district, but that says in 2014, we received this amount of money to operate the schools?
Yeah, so what I do every year is just about a 5-year forecast. The state legislature just changed the name of it. It's a 3+1 forecast. But there's historical forecasts on the Ohio Department of Education. I can sit down with those and see that, and we can look at them together if you'd like to come in and I'd like to show you them. So I'd have to see if it goes back to 2014, but I believe it probably does. And you can see what the property tax that the district received in that fiscal year. There's going to be some fluctuation in that because obviously for us, so our fiscal year goes July to June. your tax year is a calendar year. So if you're paying your taxes, your first half taxes is in our second half of that fiscal year, and your second portion of those taxes in that calendar year is the first half of our next fiscal year. So that's why you might see some fluctuations in years, because if the levy passes, we don't receive that money in that fiscal year, we only receive half of it. And then secondly, what you'll see as well is what impacts the district is collection rates. So people don't pay their taxes, and that does impact us as well. So, but I happily show you that. But if you wanted to look, if you wanted to do ODE financial forecast, 5-year forecast, you can look at historical numbers. But contact me, and we can sit down with you and talk about it as well.
And also, just so you know, part of the problem is that, and I know that's your individual property taxes, but what the school has to run on. Okay, so we get some state money, we get some local money. Okay, and what's basically happened is the state is backing out of what they're funding the public schools locally. For example, last year per pupil, we got $3,500 per student. This school year, we're getting $3,000 per student. Next year, we're scheduled to get about $2,550 per student. So our costs aren't going down, but the money that the state has given us to run the school district is going down. In fact, there is a report that states fiscal year 99, or that's a long time ago, the state covered 47% of the base cost of education. And this is according to Ohio Education Policy Institute. This fiscal year, 26, because we're in fiscal year 26, because it ends June of 26. The numbers dropped to 38%, and next year it's going to be 32%. So the state is backing out what they're giving us to run schools. They've gone from 47 to 38 now to 32 next year. So that difference, that's why you see more and more schools going for levies, because we got to make up the difference, because our costs aren't going down that much. In fact, the DeRoth decision, which was a lawsuit back about 26 years ago that said the state funding relied too much on property taxes. Residents in Ohio now pay the 8th highest property tax in the country. That percentage is actually higher now than it was back when the Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional. And what happens is the state General Assembly has also given a lot of tax benefits to businesses. So it used to be, and there's a chart dealing with this. This top line, the yellow line, is hard to see. That's what businesses used to pay back in 1975. They paid about 53% of the property taxes to run schools. That's down, cutting about half. Property owners, farmers, and residential property owners, it's gone up to 67%. It used to be about 47%. It's gone up to 67%. So the burden, even locally, has changed from businesses way to property owners. That's done at Columbus with the laws that they've passed. And I can pass this around if you'd like to see the line better, but that's where they're shifting. The state is shifting it from their burden to ours. The state will say, we've got a tight budget. Let's be perfectly clear. The state has given income tax breaks to the rich. Okay? So, and Matt Nolan talked about this at the Carlisle board meeting. I believe the last six General Assemblies have given income tax breaks. Well, let me tell you, if you make nothing to $26,050, you pay zero. If you make $26,000, this is on your adjusted gross income, $26,051 to $100,000, you haven't gotten a tax break. And all of those other breaks, it's gone from $100,000 up. The majority of our residents, the median resident income is less than $90,000 in Franklin. So that means all those people, and I know that we've got over 63% free and reduced, economically disadvantaged. I tell you, the families of those students got no tax break over those last income tax break over the last six General Assemblies. But yet property taxes have gone up. Okay, so we're just trying to get enough to survive, and they keep well, I'm not even talking about the money spent on vouchers. That's just money put towards public education. There's a statement that says, there's another report. This was done. This was just recently out. This was done by the Ohio Education Policy Institute. It came out last month, September 25. Rising home values, slow economic growth, and 20 years of state tax policy changes have intensified local school funding challenges. Homeowners and farmers now carry 67.5% of the property tax, up from 46.1%. The business share has been cut in half. Cuts and elimination. So Ohio has the 8th highest property tax nationally. In contrast, the state overall tax burden is 46. So what people send up to Columbus is 46 out of 50. It's low compared to others, but here's some other things. In fiscal year 2, Ohio ranked 35th nationally in state revenue for K-12 education at 44.8%, which was 4.6% below the national average. Fiscal year 23, which is what they have, Ohio is now 45th, and the state share is only 33%, which is below the state average. The percentage of local funding increase has gone from 12th to 5th nationally. So once again, Columbus is not paying their fair share. They're paying less and less as we go on, where locally is paying more. We have gone from being 12th to 5th nationally at 49.5% up to 53.1%. And we still have, just so you know, we still are, we're 41st in what we spend per pupil on K-12. We're $2,672 per pupil below the national average. We're almost 30% below the national average on what we spend to educate a child. And, you know, like I said, they're shifting their burden. It's worse than when there's that lawsuit that said it's unconstitutional. And yet, and we, Franklin City Schools, is part of the lawsuit that said this is unconstitutional what you're doing. So we're part of the lawsuit against the state about state funding. There's about 200 districts, and we did win 3 of the 5 counts it's in Columbus. So and so the state appealed it. So it's now in the Court of Appeals. It'll eventually go to the Supreme Court, but it's working through the system saying it's not fair what you're doing and how you're funding schools, or the lack of how you're funding schools. So I apologize for going off on a tangent, but that's, I mean, they're not doing a job in Columbus. Let's be honest.
Like I said, my thing is that the taxes that I pay has increased dramatically over the time that I've lived here. I lived here since the early 1990s. So my kids have went through the schools here. They graduated. They've done well. I have no complaints with the schools. They seem to do well. I participated when my kids were in school, somewhat with what was going on, what I could do. So I don't have an issue with the schools. I just don't like the wording that says that money is the same as it was, but yet when I look at my tax bill, it's went up dramatically.
Yes.
So how do those weigh out? I guess I need to talk with this gentleman in private about it.
Yeah, he'll spend as much time as you need on that.
If he can figure out why that is, and you guys should have a lot more money than you do according to my taxes.
Right.
I don't understand.
Understand.
It's very confusing. I've asked the county, I says, how do they figure these taxes out? And they just told me it's very confusing. It's hard to explain.
Well, we had
And
a,
I said, well, I know it is. That's why I'm asking the question.
well, we had a town hall meeting last spring, and former Representative Lips said very few people in the General Assembly understand school finance. So don't worry about it. I mean, it's just, even in Columbus, their legislators don't understand the complexity of school funding. But basically, yes, yours have gone up, but what we've gotten from the state has gone down. Not an increase, it's literally gone down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to ask a question during this session? Go ahead, stand up, just name, address, and then your question.
First of all, I live in Hunter, Franklin Township, 35. Obviously, I've talked to Dr. Sander over the years, spoken with many of you. I just want to say thank you for doing this one. It's hard enough taking this on, trying to figure out how we're going to make the district better. I moved here from a different district, obviously, where I grew up, and I hear everybody talk about how proud we are about Well, it's time we step. It's time for we put our boots on, get on the ground. And I think when you look at the income tax, I just have a question. How much money is that going to bring in and make it where it's a little more evenly distributed versus it being property taxes? Because I know that's always a pain point. And kind of what's excluded, because I don't think everyone fully understands the property taxes versus the income tax of what's excluded from it.
Yeah, so I can talk about the first piece of that, like how much is it going to be, how much is bringing in, just people aren't necessarily aware. Excuse me, sorry, I'm a little bit on the weather, so I apologize. So if you're not aware, it's a 1% traditional income tax. The way that it works in a school district, it's a little bit different than a property tax, and I'm talking a little bit from the perspective of the school. So if we were going to be doing a typical property tax, we would see half of the revenue that we should see basically next between January and June of next year. Income taxes work a little bit differently when you're talking about the district. So when you're talking about it being fully funded, it would bring in about $6.35 million annually into the district. But it takes a little bit of time for that, for full collections to occur. So this is actually from the Ohio Department of Taxation. They have a lot of experience with this. So the first fiscal year, so in fiscal 26, which is 25-26 school year, we would see roughly about 6% of that amount coming in. So typically we'd see 50% of it showing up. With an income tax, we'd see 6%. In year two, we'd see 70% of the total. And then basically in the third fiscal year, we would see 100%. So that is part of the challenge when you're looking at an income tax from a cash flow perspective for the school district, is it kind of stair steps in a little bit. One of the things that's a little bit healthier about it from the school's perspective is, you know, we're talking like in Mr. Young's case, when we're talking about property taxes, we all pay property taxes. None of us really like this. And we're talking about a structure that we don't really make money off of. So it's just something that's increasing every time. And when we're talking about an income tax, at least I would think from a community's perspective is if I make more than I'm paying the same rate, at least it's something off of an amount of money that I make over time rather than this entity that just kind of exists. The benefit for the school district, and if you look at other districts that have an income tax, they tend to stay up and down a little bit longer, is because of the fact that income generally increases over time. So there is an inflationary perspective on that. The district would start to see some increases over a certain amount of time frame that, you know, it would allow the district to stay off the ballot a little bit longer, and I think that would create a healthier financial perspective.
So just so y'all know, if you want I'm going to pass these around. You are more than welcome to look at this. When I was referring to the different stats, these are the sources I cited. So if you want to, feel free to look at them and pass it all you want. I don't want you to think I was just making up numbers. I wanted to make sure you see the source. So that's important.
So obviously, worst case scenario, as an individual, you lose your job. You know, if you're paying your property taxes, you lose your job, your property taxes stay what they are. At least in this particular case, you lose your job, or something occurs in your family, or you take a lesser paying job, then obviously your tax burden would decrease. So to answer your question about what it does and does not tax, I'll go over a list of it and I'll try to explain it a little bit better. So what is not tax? Social Security benefits, disability and survivor benefits, railroad retirement benefits, welfare benefits, child support, property received as a gift, bequest, or inheritance, or workers' comp benefits. Essentially, whatever is taxable from an Ohio, when you file your Ohio state income taxes, that is what is taxable.
But the big thing with this, it's not your gross. It's after you get all your deductions. The tax is on your adjusted gross income. So that's important. It's not on your gross income. It's on your adjusted gross income after you get all the deductions.
Does that answer your question?
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to address the board? Not the board, but our superintendent and treasurer.
I'll ask. I have a quick question. John Wheeler, 429 Christine Lane. I was wondering, with the income tax versus property tax, the map of what you're taxing, is that the same?
Yes,
So it's an income tax would apply to anyone that lives within the tax district for the income tax would match the district map.
correct.
So township would pay the same as people living within the city limits or
Yeah, so
Carlisle
if you,
limits.
yeah, so if you reside within the school district, you would pay the income tax.
All right. And then is there a difference in what we collect from businesses from a property tax versus an income tax? Because I've had someone who explained that to me and I haven't heard it addressed here. So I'm wondering if you could explain how those are different in terms of the business development and industry in the city versus if we're doing a property tax, what the difference is.
Yeah.
So there's a property that's gonna be developed. So I'm not gonna deal with businesses and residential. I'll let him do that. But I want to talk about the benefit of a traditional income tax. So over where originally the district talked about making one big campus, corner of Shaker, Manchester, this was probably 20 years ago. That's going to be developed into homes. There's about 200, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, about 240 homes, 30 townhomes. Okay. So the city put a TIF on that. TIF basically, it held us harmless from the standpoint, it is farmland now. So we get 5,700 and change in property taxes from that big area that's going to be developed into those homes. Then on top of that, they put the CRA on top of that because what they do is just get to 5750